Welcome to the next lesson. This lecture is in continuation of the previous one, and we are going to again talk about the American system today. Last time we talked about the political aspect, the political content of the administrative system of the US. We looked at the Constitution, we looked at the various houses, the lower and the upper house. We looked at the concept of checks and balances in the Constitution. And we also looked at how the president works and what he's supposed to do. Today we'll move on further and come more closer to the real administrative side of the US establishment. So we'll start off by looking at organizations available in the administrative system. There are three types of organizations which are available in the US: the departments, the public corporations, and what are called the independent regulatory commissions. डिपार्टमेंट्स से तो हम सब लोग वाकिफ हैं, हमारे पाकिस्तान में इतने डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं, इतनी मिनिस्ट्रीज हैं, इसी तरह बेपनाह पब्लिक कॉरपोरेशंस हैं, और हमें ये भी पता है कि हर डिपार्टमेंट का एक स्पेसिफिक काम है. जो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ वर्क्स है वो वर्क्स कर रहा है और डेवलपमेंट का काम कर रहा है. जो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ हेल्थ है उसका अपना एक डिफाइंड काम है. जो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एजुकेशन है उसका भी बहुत क्लियर कट है. इसी तरह सोशल डिपार्टमेंट्स के अलावा जो इकोनॉमिक डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं, चाहे वो ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स के हों, चाहे वो इन्वेस्टमेंट से रिलेटेड हों, चाहे वो इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन से रिलेटेड हों, ये तमाम डिपार्टमेंट्स जो हैं अपना अपना स्पेसिफिक काम करते हैं. So a department is an organization whose work is very much clearly specified and of course is run by administrators and the bureaucracy. और पब्लिक कॉरपोरेशंस जैसे हमारे यहाँ हैं वहाँ भी हैं. वहाँ कुछ ज़्यादा बड़ी होंगी, शायद इतने डेफिसिट्स ना हो जितने हमारे हैं, शायद हो ही ना. तो बहुत बड़ी बड़ी पब्लिक कॉरपोरेशंस हैं यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका में. हमारे यहाँ जैसे स्पेसिफाइड काम है, लेकिन नेचर काफी डिफरेंट हो सकता है, क्योंकि वो काम जो हमारी कॉरपोरेशंस कर रही हैं अक्सर उस किस्म का काम प्राइवेट सेक्टर कर रहा है यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में. वहां कोई एयरलाइन की गवर्नमेंट ओन कॉरपोरेशन शायद ना हो, नहीं है. इसी तरह स्टील कॉरपोरेशंस शायद ना हो, नहीं है. And what is this entity? Independent Regulatory Commission. We should have a closer look at that. This is something which over a period of time evolved in the United States and has become a very important part of the administrative system of the United States. Let us look at some of the independent regulatory commissions. One of them is called the Interstate Commerce Commission. This was perhaps the first one to be set up. It deals and regulates what kind of economic and commerce relationships can and will exist amongst the states, since there are 50 states plus. They are all the time engaged, they are all contiguous in a way, next to each other. So they are all the time indulging in some kind of trade or commerce, and there are many issues which arise out of it. So the Interstate Commerce Commission was set up to address those frictions, those issues, those debates which are thrown up as a result of this huge amount of interstate commerce in the United States. The Federal Reserve Board, extremely important organization, like we have the State Bank of Pakistan. It manages the monetary policy of the country and much more. It regulates the financial sector to some extent. It will determine the interest rates for times to come. It will determine foreign currency policies. So the Federal Reserve Board is perhaps the most important financial entity in the country. And generally it is headed by very, very senior economists or finance people who have had a lot of public service. And the head of the Federal Reserve Board is extremely respected in the United States. At times, he may be considered as taking on governments and presidents. The Federal Trade Commission again, जो Federal Trade Commission है, इसका भी बहुत important किरदार है. अगर आप हमारे यहाँ देखें तो शायद इसका इक्विवेलेंट हमारी ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स मिनिस्ट्री हो या ट्रेड डेवलपमेंट अथॉरिटी ऑफ पाकिस्तान हो. So the Federal Trade Commission is going to provide some guidelines on trade with other countries, on commerce with other countries. It may regulate it, not just exports but imports also. We keep on hearing of these dumping complaints. So that is one of the issues, example of one of the issues which the Federal Trade Commission may be engaged in. Then the Federal Power Commission. Power, as we see day by day, is becoming a most important factor of production. And the attendant problems are there all over the world. So there was this need to have a Federal Power Commission to sort out power issues. What kind of power to produce, how to sell it, at what price to sell it. The guidelines to be provided. And sometimes investments to be made. So the Federal Power Commission again is a very important regulatory commission. We do have in our own country some regulatory organizations, and when we talk about the power sector, the NEPRA comes to our mind. And you know, NEPRA has that primary role in determining the prices of power, of fixing prices for different kinds of power from different sources, from different entities, be it tidal power, be it thermal power, be it a mixture. Someone's got to price it. So if we look at our own setup, we find similar regulatory commissions. But mind you, ये शुरू कहाँ से हुआ? शुरू ये सारा सिलसिला रेगुलेशन का अमेरिका से हुआ, और ये काफी पुरानी है, आपकी नहीं है, पिछली सदी से चल रही हैं ये कमीशंस which came up. The Federal Communications Commission, we know how communications are becoming more and more important. You've got the security aspect of communications. You've got the developmental and the service, IT aspect of communications. We do have in Pakistan the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority, PTA, which regulates our service providers. One can of course look at the roles of regulatory commissions in developed countries and developing countries, and you'll find that they differ a lot. Securities and Exchange Commission, we have it too. Very important for the private sector. If you're going to invest in the stock market, there should be some regulatory agency which is there to protect the common man. अगर आपने स्टॉक मार्केट में इन्वेस्ट करना है तो कोई ना कोई मैकेनिज्म तो होना चाहिए स्टॉक्स को ट्रेड करने का, उनकी ट्रेडिंग को रेगुलेट करने का, आईपीओस जो फ्लोट होने हैं उनका तरीका कारवजा करने का, और जो कंपनीज हैं बड़ी बड़ी उनको रजिस्टर करने का, उनको रेगुलेट करने का, उनसे इंफॉर्मेशन मांगने का, डिस्क्लोजर मांगने का, other disclosures apart from their annual reports maybe. So the Securities and Exchange Commission, they say, has played a very vital role in the development of the private sector in the US. Again, I said that the role differs in developing and developed countries. In our case, the Securities and Exchange Commission has had a checkered career with a lot of talk about manipulations. यानी जो सिक्योरिटीज एंड एक्सचेंज कमीशन ने कंट्रोल करना है और रेगुलेट करना है स्टॉक मार्केट को, अगर उसी में मैनिपुलेशन शुरू हो जाएं या वही मैनिपुलेट करना शुरू कर दे, जैसे कि कहा जाता है हमारे मुल्क में हो चुका है, तो फिर एक आम इन्वेस्टर कहां जाएगा? Then we have the National Labor Relations Board. Labor relations are an extremely important aspect of any industrialized country or developing country. जब इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट और लेबर में कोई भी तनाज़ा होता है तो उसको तय करने के लिए कोई ना कोई प्लेटफॉर्म चाहिए होता है। यानी जब वो सब चीजें या वो नेगोशिएशंस एग्जॉस्ट हो जाती हैं या प्रोडक्टिव नहीं रहती, इन केस ऑफ डिस्प्यूट्स बिटवीन लेबर एंड ओनर्स, देन देयर शुड बी अ प्लेटफॉर्म अवेलेबल. सो in the United States, to regulate labor relations, we have the National Labour Relations Board. And as you know, we also have similar organizations in Pakistan which step in when there is a failure or an impasse in the relationships of the two big stakeholders. The two big stakeholders involved in any industrial unit, or for that matter even service units, service businesses, those who are providing services. The workers and the owners or the managers. Then we have the United States Maritime Commission. This deals with naval issues and has a military angle to it too. So you're looking after your naval, or rather your water resources and your oceans. And then you may have to regulate certain things. Fishing, for example. Then you have the Civil Aeronautics Board. There has been this great expansion in aeronautical related businesses and air traffic all over the world, especially so in the United States, which has some of the most busiest airports in the world. So it was found necessary to have another regulatory commission which would handle the affairs of connected to aeronautics. We don't have such a commission or a setup in our country as yet. Now we'll look at some of the characteristics of these regulatory bodies. They've been called islands of autonomy since they are established outside the executive departments. ये जो commissions हैं, ये जो executive department है या administrative department है, उसका part नहीं है और ना ही होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि उन्होंने उस एग्जेक्टिव डिपार्टमेंट की एक्टिविटीज को ही तो रेगुलेट करना है. तो ये मद्देनजर रखते हुए इन सबको ऑटोनमस किया गया, बेपनाह ऑटोनॉमी दी गई है. आइलैंड्स ऑफ ऑटोनॉमी एज इज बीइंग स्टेटेड हियर. What do? They make rules, implement them and prosecute violators. यानी वो उस एरिया में अपने सफेयर में जो भी इश्यूज हैं, प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, उनके लिए रूल्स बनाते हैं और ना सिर्फ रूल्स बनाते हैं बल्कि इंश्योर करते हैं कि वो रूल्स फॉलो हों. और अगर कोई उन रूल्स से इनहिराफ कर रहा है और फॉलो नहीं कर रहा तो फिर यही कमीशन, कोई कोर्ट नहीं, यही कमीशन उनको प्रोसिक्यूट करेगी. सो देयर इज दिस क्वासी जुडिशियल एस्पेक्ट टू दिस, दैट यू आर गोइंग टू मेक पॉलिसीज, रूल्स, लॉज, you are going to get them implemented, and in case of a lapse, we will take the violator to the book. You will prosecute, आप उसके खिलाफ मुकदमा चलाएंगे. Of course, you will go to a court of law, but then it is your responsibility, not of any third party, to prosecute them. So you are very powerful. इसलिए इसको, इस किस्म की organizations को fourth branch of the government, पहली तीन हमने देखी थी, लेजिस्लेटिव, एग्जीक्यूटिव एंड जुडिशियल, इनको फोर्थ ब्रांच ऑफ गवर्नमेंट भी कहा गया. दैट्स इंटरेस्टिंग. They have to be powerful enough to qualify for that. और ये मल्टी हेडेड होती हैं, यानी एक बंदा इनका चेयरमैन नहीं है, बल्कि हर बंदा अपने इक्वल स्टेटस का है, और मल्टी हेडेड इसलिए इनको कहा जा रहा है. They comprise of 5 to 7 expert members appointed by the president for a term of 5 to 7 years. यानी टर्म इनकी प्रेसिडेंट से भी लंबी है, 5 से 7 साल तक है. तो ये कंटिन्यूटी देखिएगा, ये एक्सपर्टीज का यूज देखिएगा. दैट इन दिस रेगुलेटरी कमीशंस यू हैव दीज मेंबर्स अपॉइंटेड फॉर अ फेयरली लॉन्ग टेन्योर. और क्या इनके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं? यानी अपॉइंट तो प्रेसिडेंट करेगा और उनको वो इंडिपेंडेंस पूरा दे देगा. उसके बाद ना प्रेसिडेंट का ना किसी पार्टी का उन पर कंट्रोल रहता है. दे आर वेरी वेरी इंडिपेंडेंट. और उसकी वजह ये भी है कि इनका कंट्रोल, इन पर ज्यादा कंट्रोल कांग्रेस का है बनिस्बत प्रेसिडेंट के. वो क्यों? दे आर क्रिएटेड बाय द कांग्रेस. They are the product of a statute or an enactment by the Congress. तो कांग्रेस अगर चाहे तो उसको खत्म भी कर सकता है. They can have another arrangement for the same thing, some different arrangement. So they are the creation of the Congress, और कांग्रेस उनकी फंक्शंस भी डिटरमिन करता है, जो कि टाइम टू टाइम चेंज भी होती रहती है कि आपने क्या करना है, कैसे करना है. ऑफ कोर्स एज द इकोनॉमी डेवलप्स एंड डेवलप्स इन वेरियस डायरेक्शंस, you require continuously to fine tune the functions of such bodies. In fact, all public administrative bodies, not just the regulatory bodies, but all public administrative bodies perhaps. इसीलिए इनको आर्म्स ऑफ द कांग्रेस भी कहा जाता है अमेरिकन टर्मिनोलॉजी में. अब ये बिल्कुल इंडिपेंडेंट हो जाते हैं या समझे जा सकते हैं, क्योंकि प्रेसिडेंट कैन अपॉइंट द मेंबर्स बट ही कैन नॉट रिमूव देम. प्रेसिडेंट ने एक दफा जब मेंबर्स को अपॉइंट कर दिया, फिर वो उनको रिमूव नहीं कर सकता. सो फ्रॉम दिस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू वी कैन से दैट दे आर एक्सट्रीमली इंडिपेंडेंट. और ये जरूरी भी है, आपको नॉन पार्टीजन होना पड़ेगा, यानी पॉलिटिकल किसी पार्टी का आप पे इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं होना चाहिए, और ना ही एग्जीक्यूटिव का आपके ऊपर इन्फ्लुएंस होना चाहिए. अगर कांग्रेस का है तो वो एक बड़े एग्रीगेट सूरत में है. सो यू आर क्वाइट इंडिपेंडेंट टू रेगुलेट द अफेयर्स ऑफ दैट सेक्टर ऑफ द इकोनॉमी और द कंट्री विच इज रेलिवेंट टू यू. अच्छा, एक और इंटरेस्टिंग चीज इनकी ये है कि इनकी सेनेट की मेंबर्स की तरह ओवरलैपिंग टर्म्स हैं, क्योंकि दे आर अपॉइंटेड फ्रॉम टाइम टू टाइम. सो देयर इज दिस कंटिन्यूटी. सो इन सच ए कमीशन यू आर इंश्योरिंग कंटिन्यूटी, अनलाइक द कमीशंस इन आवर कंट्री, बिकॉज दे आर नॉट मल्टी-हेडेड. यू गॉट अ head there, and they are also the terms are at the most 5 years in such commissions, less in some of them. Maybe 3 would be a typical one, but are not overlapping. You appoint members from time to time in these commissions in the US so that the continuity is there. And of course their jurisdiction is nationwide. इन्होंने तमाम स्टेट्स को कवर करना है. इनके सब्जेक्ट्स ही ऐसे हैं, they are of national nature. They are of national importance. So, the jurisdiction per se has to be nationwide. आप इनकी jurisdiction को limit नहीं कर सकते. Their budgets are subject to review by the Office of Management and Budget, which is a staff agency of the President. हमने देखा था कि प्रेसिडेंट के ऑफिस में कई स्टाफ एजेंसीज हैं और उनमें एक ऑफिस ऑफ मैनेजमेंट एंड बजट भी है. अब इसका क्या काम है? अपार्ट फ्रॉम कमिंग अप विद ऑल दोज बजटरी प्रपोजल्स, this agency can review budgets of these regulatory bodies. Another aspect is that the personnel issues of these are also controlled by the Office of Personnel Management. So there is some control over these regulatory commissions in the sense that the Office of Personnel Management, the Federal Office of Personnel Management in the US, will control their their personnel issues. So otherwise they are fairly, very, very autonomous. But in matters of personnel, perhaps they need that support also. And as such, the Office of Personnel Management is there to help them in personnel matters. Continuing with the characteristics of these organizations, these regulatory commissions, we see how they are interacting with the Congress. In a way, they are subject to the Congress, for the simple reason that that is where they get their budget from. The Congress makes the annual appropriations for them. And the Congress is also the watchdog for them in a way. Congress जो है वो उनकी वर्किंग में के बारे में इन्वेस्टिगेशंस ऑर्डर कर सकती है और अगर जरूरत हो तो उनका जो दायरा कार है उनकी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को चेंज कर सकती है. It can even abolish them. और एक और जो एस्पेक्ट है वो फिर वही बैलेंस ऑफ पावर्स और जुडिशियल रिव्यू का आ गया. एक तरफ हम इसको फोर्थ पिलर ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट कह रहे हैं इन रेगुलेटरी कमीशंस को, बट देयर एक्शंस आर आल्सो सब्जेक्ट to judicial review by the courts. And of course, if something is found not in keeping with the laws of the land, that decision would be struck down and declared void. And now we come to the Constitution of the American Civil Service and its background. A little bit of historical background. अमेरिका में एक निहायती दिलचस्प और अजीब सिलसिला हमेशा से चलता रहा है सिविल सर्विस का, जिसको कहते हैं पेट्रनेज सिस्टम, या इसको स्पॉइल सिस्टम भी कहा जाता है. एंड दिस हैज बीन डिराइव्ड फ्रॉम दैट टर्मिनोलॉजी that to the victor belong the spoils of the war, of course. तो यानी अगर इलेक्शन में जो पार्टी जीतती है, विक्ट्री पाती है, उनकी ये राइट है कि वो अपने लोग की पोस्ट पर ले आए, की एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पोस्ट पर ले आए. यानी these are the spoils of the war in the sense that you have had an electoral victory, and now you are going to reward your supporters or people whom you favor. This is the patronage system. You are their patron. So you are going to put these proteges in power on key posts in the administrative setup. This was historically the case in the United States. और इसके तहत 18th century में लोग अपॉइंट होते रहे. Various presidents appointed good, qualified professionals to key administrative posts. And no one would raise many eyebrows. However, in the 1820s, things changed. A lot of inefficient people came into the system. And no qualification or technical or professional expertise was kept in mind when doling out this political favor. यानी जैसे कैसे भी लोग थे जिन्होंने आपको सपोर्ट किया, आपने उनको की एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पोस्ट पे भिजवा दिया. ये जब ट्रेंड 1820s में शुरू हुआ तो उसके खिलाफ बहुत ज्यादा रिएक्शन हुआ, क्योंकि इतनी ज्यादा करप्शन आ गई और इनएफिशिएंसी आ गई और पार्टीबाजी आ गई. हर पार्टी जो पावर में आती थी अपने लोग लेके आती थी, इनएफिशिएंट लोग लेके आती थी, करप्ट लोग लेके आती थी. एंड देन देयर वाज अ पब्लिक रिएक्शन टू इट. और एक मूवमेंट स्टार्ट हुई कि जनाब, वी नीड रिफॉर्म्स. देयर शुड बी पब्लिक सेक्टर रिफॉर्म्स. विदाउट रिफॉर्म्स दिस कांट गो ऑन. और ये इतनी शिद्दत इख्तियार कर गई, इतना ज्यादा रिएक्शन हुआ that the establishment had to bring in reforms. इस तरह सिविल सर्विस एक्ट ऑफ 1883 मारज़े वजूद में आया. This is also known as the Pendleton Act. और इसके फीचर्स क्या थे? Spoil system was partially abolished. Kindly notice, not fully abolished, only partially abolished. In fact, very partially abolished. लेकिन गालिबन वो प्रेशर जो पड़ रहा था, वो जो मूवमेंट थी, जो रिएक्शन था, उसको मैनेज करने के लिए ये एक्ट पास किया गया. Perhaps at the bottom of their hearts, the politicians didn't want to change this. Theoretically, they did establish the merit system. कि जनाब, जो लोग की पोस्ट पे एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पोस्ट होंगे, they will have to come on merit. And we know what are the characteristics of a merit system. We have already looked at them. तो मेरिट सिस्टम एस्टैब्लिश कर दिया उन्होंने, और साथ ही द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स सिविल सर्विस कमीशन बना दी. दिस वाज अ बिग स्टेप एंड अ वेरी पॉजिटिव स्टेप. जैसे हमारे यहाँ फेडरल पब्लिक सर्विस कमीशन है, फिर प्रोविंसेस के अपने सर्विस कमीशंस भी हैं, जो बड़ी जांच पड़ताल के बाद एटलीस्ट थियोरेटिकली लोगों को सेलेक्ट करते हैं फॉर वेरियस इंपॉर्टेंट पोस्ट. तो ये 1883 में जाके अमेरिका में यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स सिविल सर्विस कमीशन बन गया. अब ये जो मेरिट सिस्टम वो लेकर आए, उसके खद्दखाल क्या थे? what kind of a merit system came into being after this? Only 10% of the positions in civil service were given within the purview of the commission. यानी ये तो तकरीबन मजाक ही था कि सिर्फ 10% फेडरल पोस्ट जो हैं आप वो सिविल सर्विस कमीशन के जिम्मे करें कि जी आपने रिक्रूटमेंट सिर्फ इन 10% पे करनी है, और उसके अलावा फिर जो आपकी स्टेट और लोकल गवर्नमेंट्स थी उन पे तो कवरेज ही नहीं था मेरिट सिस्टम का. दे वर नॉट इंक्लूडेड इन दिस होल स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स. तो ये एक अच्छा कदम था, लेकिन of course not sufficient, not enough. So naturally the public felt that enough had not been done. अभी बहुत कुछ करना बाकी था. So as a result, in 1940 we find the Rams-Pact Act come into being. उसने ये किया कि it extended the coverage of merit system to 90% of the federal jobs. This was a big step. यानी 90% के करीब 90% पूरे जो फेडरेशन के जॉब्स थे, फिर स्टेट्स को नहीं टच किया, फेडरेशन के जो जॉब्स थे उनको उन्होंने कहा उन पर जो रिक्रूटमेंट होगी वो बिल्कुल मेरिट सिस्टम के मुताबिक, कंपेटिटिव सिस्टम के मुताबिक होगी, क्वालिफिकेशंस पे बेस्ड होगी. This was a big step forward, but the patronage system of the spoil systems character of the US administrative system remained intact. How was that? वो कैसे? Actually, the senior most posts in the system, generally heads of organizations, were still not included within the purview of the commission, or the merit system was not applicable to them. They were still considered as patronage job, as spoils of the war, and these are about 10,000 senior posts of the civil service. So the senior most posts never came within the purview of the merit system or the United States Civil Service Commission. ये बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है that the biggest power in the world, you have still the patronage system, and with change in each government there are a lot of jobs available for people who supported that government to come into power, that particular political party to come into power. And they get them as a reward. 10,000 senior positions. Then there is the Central Personnel Agency in the US. Now there is a Central Personnel Agency everywhere, in every country. And in the US, it is the US Civil Service Commission, which is the Central Personnel Agency. It comprises of 3 commissioners, और ये 1978 तक सेंट्रल पर्सनल एजेंसी रही। and that person goes out and says so, takes a stand that what is happening in my organization is wrong, and goes and informs the concerned quarters कि जनाब ये गलत बातें इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में हो रही हैं, उसको विसल ब्लोअर कहा जाता है. तो विसल ब्लोअर जो है उसको प्रोटेक्शन की जरूरत हो सकती है, because that organization against the practices being of his own organization, against the wrong practices of his own organization, he has raised an alarm, he has blown a whistle. That organization may not take kindly to him, so he may be mistreated in certain ways, or his privileges, his rights may be at stake. Under such circumstances, it is the protection board, Merit System Protection Board, which will guarantee him some protection and will come to his aid. In Pakistan, we don't have much of a concept of a whistleblower, because most people either become part of the corrupt system or the inefficient system, or if something is happening, they turn their face onto the other side. Generally, people don't get up and say, oh, things are going wrong in my organization, we got to do something about it. There's so much of corruption, so much of irregularity, rules are not being followed. So we don't have many examples of this kind of behavior. But whenever there is some such thing happening, ultimately I think it is the whistleblower who suffers. There is no agency or authority which will actively come to his support and look into the organization's affairs with a view to making them better and trying to find out what irregularities are going on. So unfortunately, we don't have such a setup in Pakistan. Now the Merit System Protection Board comprises of 3 members, and they are appointed by President with consent of the Senate, not the state but the Senate, for a term of 7 years, again a long term. Once you have been appointed for 7 years, you can be fairly independent. But this organization is bipartisan, so you have representatives from both the parties which generally come into power. So it can't be prejudiced or cannot be influenced by one party only. It can't lean towards what one party wants. And very interesting, within it, there is another independent office of a special counsel. Now this special counsel helps those whistleblowers and also provides assistance to the protection board in all legal matters. Now, till now we had been talking about the affairs of the administrative system per se, and not other civil service setups or establishments where labor is involved, which are industrial undertakings. So for them to resolve their issues, we have a Federal Labor Relations Authority. Now what does this one do? It determines the Federal Service Labor Management Relations. It administers the Federal Service Labor Management Relations. So one stakeholder is the management, on the other side is the labor. There will be always problems, and these problems will be of a much serious nature than those in the rest of the administrative system or other entities of the government, because the labor is involved here, and the labor is very, very protective about its rights. But what kind of wages it is getting? What kind of facilities it is getting? And how it is being treated? Welfare. So between labor and management, there is bound to be friction. And sometimes that friction can be settled by mutual negotiations between the two, and sometimes not. So a platform has been provided in the shape of the Federal Labor Relations Authority in the US to manage labor management relations in a positive manner. We do have labor courts in our country also, which attend to unfair labor practices. But authority of this kind is missing. The Federal Labor Relations Authority consists of 3 members appointed for a term of 5 years by the President with the approval of the Senate. यानी वही पुराना तरीका जो था कि सेनेट ने कंफर्म करना है, अप्रूव करना है, लेकिन नॉमिनेट बंदों को, मेंबर्स को प्रेसिडेंट ही करेगा। और इसमें 3 मेंबरान हैं, फिर इनकी टर्म भी काफ़ी लंबी है, 5 साल, कम से कम प्रेसिडेंट की 4 साल की टर्म से तो लंबी है। इसी के अंदर there is an office of general counsel, relating to unfair labor practices. So the general counsel will take up issues related to unfair labor practices and assist the authority in this regard. Whenever there would be a case in which लेबर ये कह रहा है कि अनफेयर लेबर प्रैक्टिसेस हमारे साथ हो रही हैं, जो भी हों, यानी जो लॉ उनको प्रोटेक्शन देता है या उनको फैसिलिटीज देता है, दे आर नॉट बीइंग ऑनर्ड बाय द मैनेजमेंट, तो वो अनफेयर लेबर प्रैक्टिस बन जाती है। यानी अगर आपने 8 घंटे काम करना है और मैनेजमेंट आपसे 10 घंटे करा रही है, या अगर उसके लिए ओवर टाइम आपको मिलना है और ओवर टाइम प्रॉपर नहीं दे रही, तो दीज आर अनफेयर लेबर प्रैक्टिसेस। So the office of the General Counsel within this authority is an important part, because the crux of the matter are the unfair labor practices. फिर एक और जो इसमें ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एनविसिज्ड है, That is the Federal Service Impasse Panel. Impasse का मतलब होता है कि आप डेडलॉक हो गए, कोई बात आगे चल नहीं रही, कोई राह निकल नहीं रही. So under these circumstances, where the industry, in an industrial unit, the labor and the management have not been able to negotiate a settlement, वो किसी दरमियाना रास्ते पे नहीं आ पाए और कोई सेटलमेंट उनमें नहीं हो पाई है, तो उसको इम्पैस कहते हैं. Then it has to be, the best thing is to refer it to a third party. Because if negotiations fail between two parties, then there has to be an arbitrator, someone outside an agency, a platform, where both the labor represented by its unions and the agency management represented by its legal expert or any senior manager can be facilitated to come to a negotiation. So the Federal Services Impasse Panel provides this facility. It provides a platform for both these stakeholders to come and negotiate and find a way out, get out of the impasse. हमारे यहाँ भी ये बहुत नाजुक हैं, लेबर रिलेशंस और मैनेजमेंट रिलेशंस, और कई ऐसे यूनिट्स हैं गवर्नमेंट के जो इंडस्ट्रियल नेचर के हैं, बेपनाह यूनिट्स हैं. इनफैक्ट इफ यू लुक एट द लिस्ट ऑफ कॉर्पोरेशंस यू विल फाइंड एट लीस्ट 20 of them where labor has a big role to play. तो हमारे पास इंडस्ट्रियल कोर्ट्स भी, हमारे पास लेबर कोर्ट्स अवेलेबल हैं to educate on these matters and hand down a decision if the impasse prevails. And we'll end today's lecture with a summary of the aspects we have discussed. We looked at this entity and its role in the American administrative system called the Independent Regulatory Commission. And we saw that they were really independent, with 5 to 7 members, with a tenure of 5 to 7 years, and very powerful, because once appointed, they could not be removed by the president. Although the Congress had more pressure, more influence on them, because they were created by the Congress, enactment of the Congress, and the Congress could change their commission. And they related to the commerce, interstate commerce, to power, trade, communication, and of course 2 of the very important regulatory commissions were the Federal Reserve Board and the Securities and Exchange Commission, the former having so much relevance to the monetary policy of the country and hence the development, and also the Securities and Exchange Commission regulating all those big fortune companies in the US. After that, we started a discussion about the real administrative system, having discussed the political content and the political environment of the administrative system. We saw that patronage system had developed in the United States, meaning thereby that whenever one of the political parties came into power, they would bring in their supporters and as political reward put them into key positions in the administrative system. Heads of huge organizations and departments and bodies. This continued till 1882 when things started changing and the Pendleton Act came into force with the setting up of the United States Civil Service Commission. However, even then, only 10% of the federal posts were covered by the merit system. Things again turned for the better. When the Civil Service Reforms Act came and the Civil Service Commission was transformed into 3 agencies. And now about 90%, which is a very good number compared to 10%, of the posts came within the purview of the merit system. But still, about 10,000 senior jobs, civil service jobs, senior-most heads of big organizations were outside the purview of the merit system, and appointments were still being made on the basis of the patronage or the spoil system. However, the 3 new organizations, successors to the US Civil Service Commission, have a great role to play in the administrative system of the US, especially the Merit System Protection Board, which looks after all the affairs, recruitment, promotion, disciplining of the civil service employees. And the Office of the Personnel Management, and also the Federal Labor Relations Authority, which is the authority concerned, the relevant authority as far as the industrial enterprises and units of the federal government are concerned, because the labor is involved in them, and the Federal Labor Relations Authority ensures that fair labor practices are followed, and also provides a platform to the labor and management to negotiate through a third party in case there is an impasse in the negotiations of the 2 stakeholders. Thank you very much.